Welcome to the Growing Relationships podcast. I'm your co-host Leah, somatic feminine leadership coach and trauma reprocessing facilitator.
And my name is Frederick. I work with leadership development. I'm also the founder of the men's group Transformation Within.
And in these conversations, we will explore how to make sense of yourself and your partner in the dance of romantic relationships. Hello, Fred.
Hello, Leah.
Good to see you again.
Yes, our third episode. And I think we have a topic ready, right?
We touched on women losing their feminine side or touch with their femininity in a way. And for me, that's a very tender and dear to my heart, because for a long time I was one of those women, coming from the poorest country in Europe and needing to man up and take so many responsibilities. It definitely made me develop my masculine pole in me, masculine side, that brought me so many gifts, just to move countries and move cities and jobs and achieve all these beautiful things. Yeah, it's a lot to say, but where do we start actually?
Well, I think we actually have to preface this conversation with a few explanations, because this conversation could be triggered.
Definitely empathize with many women who feel maybe confronting listening to this conversation. So yeah.
We need to step into what is feminine and masculine energy. And I think a good place to start that conversation is to say that it's gender neutral. So we are not equating male with masculine energy. We're not equating female with feminine energy. Both genders have both energies in their own unique mix. But for the simplicity of the conversation, I tend to say male when I mean masculine, sometimes female or woman when I mean feminine. But I think it's important to keep in the back of our minds that if we're strict with the definitions of the language, it's two energies, and men and women have both in their own unique mix.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's very important, yes, to bring this up. And also maybe on top to say that it is not good and bad to have more of the masculine or more of the feminine in whatever body, masculine or feminine, you are. So it's all about decision, and how does it make you feel where you are today.
Yeah.
Right.
And also that both genders need to explore and integrate both energies in whatever mix makes them feel good. And then number two, as a couple, you need to find that dance between the energies. And that dance can shift by the hour, by the day, by the week, by the month. Who has more feminine, who has more masculine? I think a key point in our conversation here will be to find the polarity between the two. In my experience, when you lose the polarity, when both partners are in masculine or both partners are feminine, you lose that polarity. And that may make a very good project team, but you lose all passion.
You lose a spark, right? How do we go from here?
I suggest we define what we mean, feminine and masculine energy.
It's an universal law, right? It's not my theory or yours. It's a well-known universal law of polarity. And one of them is the feminine and masculine. And the feminine is pretty much the feminine in all of us, again, is pretty much the flow, the chaos, the feeling, the beingness, the side in us that is being, giving birth, creative, again. It's all about creation, giving life. And the masculine is the directive, the doing, the penetrative, the holding, the clarity bringing, the provider. It's everything that is creating that container so that the feminine can flow in safety.
And I think a good analogy is the river and the riverbanks. So imagine the river as the feminine energy. And the river is running to the sea, and it's running to the fields, giving life to the crops or whatever it is. And the riverbank is the masculine energy that is holding that river. And sometimes the feminine energy is chaotic, so you need strong riverbanks to hold that river so it can flow to the sea and the fields and give life. without strong riverbanks, the feminine energy and the river can create havoc.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's a beautiful association with the river water and the riverbank, the rocks that hold that water, the bottom of the ocean, right? And I know that the masculine, for example, masculine wants to put an end to everything, to bring this void, to bring this nothingness, yeah, which is basically the space of the consciousness, whereas there is void in that. That's why masculine men or men who identify themselves more as a masculine, they tend to just lie on the couch and do these stupid activities like TV watching, so that they are in the void, a space of no demands. And then there is a feminine who, a, a characteristic of the feminine is connection, connection. Feminine will never have enough connection. And this is where the polarities in life and couples, we clash because we have different needs, right? And the masculine wants to put an end to things, and the feminine is like, no, let's do it more, let's stay longer, let's, you know. And when you think of a birth process, for example, it's messy. Yeah, it's messy and it's beautiful. It's life giving. That's the feminine. That's the feminine in all of us.
I'm thinking about the masculine energy, and you said consciousness and the ability to hold whatever is without getting entangled. So the masculine can hold the emotions and the awareness of, I feel this is happening, but without getting drawn into the river, so to speak. Whereas the feminine is that feeling, it is that energy, and being by whatever is felt in the very moment.
Right. That's why, as you said at the beginning, it's very good. It's required from us to develop and cultivate both. Even as I'm a feminine being, let's say, I'm identifying as a woman, and I would say I have more feminine now because I cultivated more in the last, yeah, quite a few years. And if I focus only on the feminine, I would collapse when I would feel all these feelings and all this oceanic depth of my feelings and of my being. And if I don't develop my masculine capacity, which is the holding, as you say, then I would expect others to hold me, men. I would blame men that they cannot hold me, you know, instead of being capable to have this capacity in me to feel and hold at the same time. That's a healthy balance between feminine and masculine in us.
And that reminds me of this old saying. I think it comes from the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's
Oh.
like, yeah, they're built on Jung's theories. Anyway, they say, never give a sword to a man who can't dance. And I think
Mm,
that's very telling because, if you give a sword to a man who can't dance, meaning he is not in touch with the feminine, that
right,
becomes a vicious, sadistic, unhinged bastard with a sword. And if you
right.
look back at the 12th century, the 13th century with the knights and the princesses, a big part of being a knight was also the chivalry and the ability to dance. Because with that
Yeah.
feminine energy, they have the judgment to when to use the sword.
Yeah, I think it's the shadow side of not embracing the feminine when you are working on your masculine, actually. Yeah. And in fact, one of my teachers told me a few years ago that the more I would work on my masculine in me, the more my feminine would have space to unfold. And that was life changing.
And I would agree with that very much. Because I notice, the more I can embrace and mature my masculinity, the more confident and safe I feel in exploring the femininity
And the
in
other
me.
way around.
And the other way
For you,
around, yeah.
for you would be the more you would go into nature, for example, because that's connecting with nature is the feminine, right?
Mm.
Listening to the trees and connecting with the land, the more your masculine will have space to unfold in you.
But the feminine is very much about the playfulness, right? And I think a man that is not in touch with the feminine energy can become very rigid. And if
Agree.
the man is not then not matured to a place where you can hold whatever is, then you don't dare to step into the playfulness and the, being.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, I don't think I know, so many women, including me a few years ago, so many women are wanting for a very masculine man. What I want these days is a loving masculine man, which is what you say, a man who's connected, a strong man who's connected with his heart. That's the real power. And maybe, if I remember correctly from that book that you mentioned, with a lover, king,
King, warrior, magician.
exactly. So that's the king energy, no? When all the archetypes integrate at the end.
Yeah, for the king to be functional, he has to integrate all. So a king without a warrior, for example, doesn't have the discipline and the firmness and the assertiveness to actually lead. A king
Yeah,
without the thinker doesn't have a plan for how to nurture his kingdom.
here
And the
you
king
are.
with and the king without the lover will not have the be in touch with the people. So the nurturing, building something greater with the longevity.
Yeah. The culmination is basically the king, which is all of them.
Yeah.
The real king, not the king that we are experiencing nowadays.
So
In
then you
certain
have
countries.
the immature king that has not integrated the other aspects. And
No, I mean the literal kings in some
yeah,
countries.
oh, yeah. Now I want to go back to what prompted this conversation. Quite a few female senior leaders that I coach, and a couple of times I've heard something along the lines of, "I've lost touch with my femininity because I work in a very male-dominated environment, and when I come home, my man doesn't step up and lead, so I have to project manage the family and our activities and everything we do." And I find that a super interesting realization by these women. So, what do you read into this, and what are your thoughts?
So my experience is that this environment, the women that choose to be in this environment, it started even before that. It's not that they're masculine in a way because they are in this environment. You know, they say not your success is intimidating to men and your power. It is the armor that you build around your body and around your heart that keeps, powerful men away, and it's kind of intimidating for powerful men
Yes,
especially.
and I think that's a super important distinction. So let's just
Yeah,
say that once again, so it's clear.
it is not your power and your success that intimidates men. It is the closure and the armor that you build around your heart, around your body, around your womb, that is not nourishing to men, and they just run away. That was a hard truth that I had to face. And I want to start off with whoever feels that this is for like their reality right now. I want to start with this is not your fault. This is not your fault that you probably grew up with a not so present father, maybe in an environment where you had to man up and be responsible, or maybe over responsible for your family, for duties, when you had to actually leave your childhood and be a child.
And not necessarily not present father, but not a father with a mature masculinity.
Well, that's the same. Not present either physically or emotionally, it's the same.
Yeah.
Then it's at some point as little girls, it is so painful to face that pain that we disconnect from our body and we go up into the head to make sense of what is happening for us. And we might think sometimes that we are emotional and we are feminine because we are emotional, we can cry, and that's why we're feminine. But if those emotions are not really felt, they're just like a burst of like a fountain without being felt, then that does not openness, that's not
Mm.
connection to your body, to your emotional body. So yeah, then it makes sense that some women, as young little girls, they disconnect from their emotional body and they go up into the mind.
And as a girl growing up with a father with a mature masculinity who couldn't sort of provide and protect, the young girl grows up with an idea that I need to take care of myself. I cannot rely on others to take care of me and rely on others to hold. So I need to create that,
Mm.
which means going into very strong masculine energy.
Yes, that's very true.
And also, my next thought then, based on this line from a couple of my female coaching clients, is I mean, it's true that corporate life today is male dominated. And it makes me quite sad that we talk a lot about gender equality in corporate life. But the women who go into corporate life and may have a career in corporate life, they do it because they're strongly developed masculine. What we really need in corporate life is a better balance between feminine and masculine energy.
Mm, yeah, I love it. Yeah, nowadays I would say my experience is the same, that the performance is applauded, is cheered up, and they say that feminine leadership is when people will start cheering up grieving, for example, in the same manner as they promote performance and achievements.
I don't get this. Elaborate, please.
Yeah, so the performance is masculine, right? So you have to achieve, you have to prove yourself, you have to work hard. It's a doing, is the masculine. Feminine is feeling.
Yeah,
Feeling is grief. Grief is feeling. Yeah.
yeah,
Underneath sadness, usually, deep,
yeah,
deep underneath sadness is grief
yeah,
that so not so many people touch.
no, yeah.
But when you touch it, there is such a sweet liberation in your body, in your energy, in your leadership style as well. A lot of things unlock, basically, physically and emotionally. And then you can relate from the heart and you
But
can cultivate.
I think where I got stuck the first time was grief, centering it around grief. I mean, that's one of many emotions, but there's also all the positive emotions around nurturing and connection and all of that, which we also tend to down prioritize in corporate life
Yeah.
because we're so busy doing and achieving.
Yeah. I mean, I saw so many mimicking the caring and everything, which was not from a really felt place,
No,
space inside. But because they know it's good to have it, they
it becomes
do
a
it.
check of
Right, right. It's like, oh, let me have 5 minutes with you daily and ask you how are you and how is your family, like to show you that I care. But actually, I'm not there present. I'm not present, and I'm not really, really caring. Now, maybe it's very general, but I've experienced this kind of things too.
No, but I think it's clear. I think it's important to be clear that we are generalizing about that. There are, of course, lots of
Yeah.
individual differences and all of that,
Yes.
but in order to have the conversation, we need to generalize it. And I'm thinking back to the greatest managers I've had, male and female, and they've had this beautiful balance between the
Mm. Hmm.
active masculine and the present, the feminine,
Yeah.
and in probably 99.9% of these cases, they didn't have the language for it. They would never be able to relate it to female or masculine energy. But through life experience, they've sort of done the work and they've seen how they feel better and how the people around them feel better and perform better by integrating these energies.
So I would say nothing. There is no good and bad, wrong and right in terms of these polarities. It's all around. It's all about how do you feel being in the capacities, feminine, masculine, or M percentage that you have right now. How do you feel in your body, in your relationship, in your reality? Is there anything that feels off? Is there anything that you crave more as a woman, for example? that your man steps up and takes leadership, then probably you need to create that polarity, right? So this is when you take decisions so that you can feel more fulfilled, maybe. Or
let's talk a bit about what you just said. That men, and I said it before as well, that the man steps up and leads at home. Masculine leadership. I think we have to be very clear as well that it's not leadership in the sense of taking over or taking control.
no. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Correct.
leadership. It's leadership in the sense of being able to holding the space and making decisions and providing clarity, so that the feminine energy feels safe and can land and explore. Drop into the feminine.
Yes, and because so many of us, me including in the past more, now less, which I'm very proud of, we relate from so much from the mind, then we see and we perceive man and the world, and we go through this life from the headspace. And when we relate from the mind, we perceive this world through our filters, through wounds, through traumas, and not from a felt sense deep. Because we, as feminine beings, as women, let's say, not as feminine energy, but as women, as feminine beings, if you relate to that, we are designed to root and to orient down. So from the head out into the heart, lower into the womb, and lower into the earth. That's the feminine, ancient feminine alchemy, basically. And it's nothing new. So if we want actually for our men to step up and hold a space and be there for us and take decisions, maybe because we take decisions the whole day, and maybe in the evening we want just to relax and be in our beingness, in our feminine, and to be taken care of, then we need to descend. That's our task as feminine beings, to descend from the mind back into the heart, into the womb, into the lower body, into the earth, and touch the truth that's underneath our complaints, underneath our criticism. I can give an example because I can imagine this can be very, high level. For some people, let's say I am with a partner, he is not taking decisions where to eat. So if I am here up in my head, I would go and blame him, maybe complain like, you never decide. I always have to decide. Like, why do I even need such a man? If I drop down from my mind into my heart and feel, and into my womb and feel deeper what's underneath that complaint, it's my desire, my heart's desire, just to be taken care of and for me to be and not to decide another thing. And from that place, if I feel it and if I express, I'm so tired, like I work so hard, it's just I want sushi, but you decide where. I trust you. How does it feel to you when I say this?
It absolutely resonates, and I think it's a very pragmatic, practical example of something that plays out in a lot of relationships. And if I look at my own relationship, my wife loves it if I can make decisions and say, okay, we will go here to eat tonight. And even more so, if I then order her food without asking her. Because I'm so attuned to what she likes, I can read the menu and see she probably likes this, she probably likes this, and just take
Mhm.
charge.
Yeah, it's amazing. And sometimes you screw it up.
Yeah.
And
And
if we're not connected to that space in us, we will start complaining, like, why did you order this? I'm not saying your wife is doing it. I have no idea. I'm saying what I have done before and what my clients also tell me they're doing. Like they start complaining and criticizing, like, could you
yeah.
just not do this or do that or do it differently?
And when that happens,
Yeah.
then the man to stay in consciousness, just hold that without crumbling. That's the next challenge.
Oh, yeah. And when a man can do that, when he has developed his own femininity, right? Like a side relationship to his feminine, so he can hold his emotions. Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
I came to think of Teal Swan. She has a good video where she talks about the masculine and feminine energy. And I think she's using the beautiful analogy again there of the clam and the pearl. The masculine energy is the clam that protects the pearl, provide that safe space, being the shell, the clam. so that the feminine has a space to develop into a pearl.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I'm realizing, you know, what's our problem here in this podcast? You tend to look what the masculine can do to have that functioning relationship. And I tend to say, no, 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 but what can the feminine do, you know, to do the work? And then it feels sometimes like we are battling, like, no, 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 but this is my work. And then it's like, no, 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 this is the masculine work to do. I've never had such a like any kind of relationship where the other one would say, no, 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 but that's my work, you know. Usually people say finger points like, nah, that's your work.
But maybe this also illustrates the essential need for communication in a
Mm,
relationship, a
totally.
curiosity about how can I show up as my best self for us.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
start looking inside to see what's the work I need to do in order to give you the best version of me.
Yeah, that's very courageous. And also not to be afraid to admit that there might be something for me and about me this, and not to see it as because I tend in the past to be defensive, get defensive when I would get some comments or get into conflicts. It would have been very hard for me to admit that I have something to work on. But then I learned that the more I actually say, wait, 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 maybe this person genuinely wants this thing to work. When I step out of the fear that something is wrong with me and I'm not adequate and I'm a bad person and I'm not enough and all these stories, then there is space to see, wait a minute, maybe these things can work, and this person in front of me, maybe he's right at some point. Let me be curious about me. And it's painful. It's painful to stop and say, he might be right here. But it's so powerful when I say, you know what? I think you're right here. It's like,
And
try it.
I
For whoever listens to us, try it once and say, you know what? I think you're right. I'll think about it.
think it's such a very powerful tool for getting away from that discomfort of he might be right, like you say. I learned it from the ORS training about the third party in the relationship. So instead of you and I as a couple fighting over something and pointing fingers and you saying that you might be right or I am right or whatever, we imagine the relationship as a third party. And then
Mhm.
instead of looking at each other,
Right.
we look at the third party, the relationship, and ask ourselves, what does the relationship need? Because then we
Yeah.
can sort of drop pride and ego and one upping the other and focus on what does the relationship need? And then we can serve the relationship instead of serving the other. And I think that's the way of getting around internal battle with our ego.
Yeah, because we want to be right so many times, right? And I also notice it's just a habit. The more you do it, the opposite. It's like life and maybe karmic change. When you just stop and say, wait a minute, I'm getting activation right now, and usually I'm doing this. Let me just pause it here and say, I'll think about it. Not get defensive, not justify my shortcomings, anything. Just say, I'll sit with it.
Where you're saying now is pointing towards the integration of the masculine so that
Mhm.
you are able to hold what you're feeling. So you must develop capacity to be able to say what you just said.
And not collapse into feelings. And
That feeling.
yeah, and for me that's a perfect anchor to the feminine, like embodied receptivity. When we drop down into our lower body and create space to feel what we feel, we also deepen this capacity to hold nuances and paradox of life. And we are so much more able to hold life and not collapse into emotions and wounds and stories, especially stories and projections about life and about men especially. It's very, very powerful. It's like you said, the riverbank and the river. River is the eros, is the life force, the creative force in us, in all of us. And the riverbank is the logos, yeah, which is the holding of the river, and it's very static, it's ordered. And when we relate from our logos, from our mind, we meet men in their minds. There is no polarity. You're like teammates, as you said. Yeah, so it's very, very powerful just to drop into that eros in us. That's our feminine blueprint, feminine design, to be rooted in that. When we say no, I want to relate from mind, at home with my partner. At work is perfect. You don't want to be flirting with colleagues at work and all of that.
Let's be careful here, because the eros at work, I think, is what we need. But the eros in the sense of the nurturing, the caring, the present
Exactly.
right now. So we shouldn't confuse that with the sort of the sexual aspect of flirting.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, this eros is the basically the chalice of the love and passion in romantic relationships. And it's different than the other ones like agape, which is the highest what love, yeah. And there is another one I forgot, a Greek. Um, yeah. So this is our nature as feminine beings. As long as you relate to this, as consider yourself a feminine being, because there are women who can say I am more masculine, and that's okay. We don't
Yeah.
want to criticize or make feel bad anyone.
A relationship may be absolutely wonderful if the woman is operating mainly from the masculine, the man mainly from the feminine. That's totally fine.
Just going back to these walls that we build around our hearts and keep us here in the logos, yeah, in our head. This is not nourishing to men, to the masculine, let's say, to
No,
the masculine oriented man. What
no.
is nourishing to the masculine is deeply nourishing, is, and you can confirm or maybe disconfirm, is this nurturing, this eros, this life force, this aliveness, yeah, that we can cultivate as women. This is addictive to men. Like a man would fight to the death to serve that and protect that.
I think in the core, the masculine wants playfulness to balance up the directiveness, the decision making, the forward motion, and the feminine, that the deepest desire is the holding, the providing and protecting, creating that shell, the clam that Hillswan talks about, so that they
Yes.
can flourish in the feminine. So I want to give an example from my own relationship with my wife. So we first met in the Netherlands, and then we moved to Sweden. And I was proficient enough in Dutch, and of course I'm Swedish, so I took care of the outside world fully. Everything that comes to the house and the mortgage and the MOT of the car and arranging builders to reconstruct, and the whole thing. And then we moved to the Czech Republic. I didn't know the language, I didn't have any network. So my wife had to take care of a lot of the stuff in the outside world. So coming from a masculine, I said, okay, she's responsible for this, so I don't have to bother. And she felt that she has to step up and take care of it because I'm a guest in her country and
Yeah.
all this kind of things. And I thought I was a good man by compensating at home with doing the laundry, washing up, vacuum cleaning, arranging the home, etc. And eventually, this burst into big arguments and stuff, because it turns out that what my
Mm.
wife wanted was me to control the outside world and make sure she can feel protected. And then she would happy to do all the stuff in the home. But she felt she was forced to project
Mhm.
manage her life, in addition to working in a very male-dominated IT. And before I did this work and started understanding what was going on, uh, I felt very lost because, and maybe also being Swedish, with gender equality and all of that, I
Mm.
thought I'm a great husband because I'm helping in the home. But it erased this polarity and it got very confused in masculine and feminine from my side and masculine and feminine from her side. And
Mm.
when we have these conversations now, and I've stepped up to mature my masculine and to a greater extent be that clam, that has allowed her to relax and drop into her feminine.
And sometimes men don't know all these things, and the women are who are doing, the work, the inner work, so to say.
I would imagine that most couples are totally unaware.
I mean, how do you want him to step up? Okay, you started to do the work and realize that you have to step up and everything, yeah, which is amazing. And so many men, they're not doing this work because whatever reasons, yeah, they don't have capacity or it's not the right time for them. And what women tend to do is to nag them, criticize them, pull them into this work, into workshops, into therapy even. And there are other ways this is what my message to women is, that there are other ways, softer ways to make, so to say, a man to do things. only by you dropping into your body and expressing from the body, not from the mind.
When the man is missing the femininity from their partner, they tend to do the same thing. Complain and, why can't you take care of me? Why can't you nurture? Why don't you do, this and that for me? If the man can realize that if I step up and provide that clam, then there's space for my partner to drop into her femininity.
Yes. Let's say that it's amazing when both get into this awareness, into this conscious, like high level consciousness. That's amazing. So we don't need to argue who does need to do the work, which is a luxury argument, I think. Let's say that whoever is on the path can elevate their relationship, as we mentioned in the first conversation, I think. And for the women who are listening and they are on the path, I guess that was my message to them, that you can elevate, your relationship, and you can inspire, create space for him to step up by dropping into your body, descending into your heart and womb. And from your side, the message to men
is that you can make your woman want to step into her femininity fully and give that sort of playful, nurturing energy if you step up into mature masculinity and provide space and are able to provide direction and clarity for the relationship.
hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Maybe just to wrap it up, this is work that takes time because it requires deep soul searching and doing the work and being curious and befriending all the stories you have about yourself holding you back.
Yeah,
From
definitely. Self-compassion. Alone, this, it's not your fault. It was very liberating for me, for example. Oh, this doesn't mean that something is wrong with me, that I'm not capable. It's just happened. Generational, intergenerational. There is no good and bad, right and wrong in terms of feminine, masculine energies and proportions. Is only what feels right, what feels good, and where do you decide to tweak a little bit or cultivate more of one or the other so that you bring more fulfillment to your relationships. And for women, if they want to tap more into their embodied receptivity, that would be dropping into their body, right, into their inner compass, which is in their lower body, and express and feel the world from there. And for men,
for the men I work with, a lot of the work is both the mature masculine, being able to hold space without getting entangled, and at the same time, the grounding of the feminine. And I think that's two motions that I find that the men I work with has to focus on in order to integrate them. And I think it's we can say that okay, there's no right and wrong, absolutely true. But I think what we can say is that both men and women would benefit tremendously working on understanding and integrating a masculine and
yeah, let's create a better world.